Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
There was a problem in the connection. Okay. Good morning again.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes. So we were studying about the nervous system, isn't it? Yes. And the basic divisions are over. Now we'll start with the separate CNS and PNS. Okay. We are going to learn. We already dealt with PNS, isn't it? The divisions of peripheral nervous system. So today we'll be starting the central nervous system. Write the heading in your lecture note, central nervous system. Before that, which are the main parts of the central nervous system?
Brain and spinal cord.
Brain and spinal cord. Okay. Okay. The central nervous system, that is CNS, is a center of all neural activity. It integrates all incoming sensory information, performs all kinds of cognitive activities, and issues motor commands to muscles and glands. And who relays this motor commands to muscles and glands? Which part of nervous system?
The nerves.
The nerves. That is a part of which nervous system?
Peripheral nerves.
Peripheral nervous system. Okay. So the order is given by CNS and it is executed by the PNS. That's how it's generally done in our body. Okay. So the CNS comprises of the brain and the spinal cord. Basically, it is the brain and the spinal cord. So anything other than the parts of central nervous system comprises of the peripheral nervous system. That is all the set of nerves, the afferent and efferent nerves. Okay. Now, this is the whole structure of the brain with the cerebrum, pineal gland, brainstem, that is containing the midbrain pons and medulla oblongata. Then cerebellum, spinal cord is here on this particular part. It is starting from there towards the down part. Then pituitary gland, thalamus, hypothalamus. We'll be learning about different parts as separate portions. Okay. So structure of the brain. For the convenience of study, the brain can be divided into three parts, that is hindbrain, midbrain, and forebrain. Note that hindbrain is in the back of the head. Forebrain is in the from front to the top part, and midbrain is the inside part. This peach colored one is the forebrain part, and midbrain is that green colored one, and hindbrain is the yellowish shape. There is no exact division in our brain, okay? There is no such division. There is no boundaries between forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain inside our brain. But again, for the convenience of study, this was divided into three parts based on convenience of study. Remember, the nervous system was divided into two based on location, isn't it? Central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Just like that, here structure of brain, the whole brain, human brain is divided into three parts based on the convenience of study. It was for the convenience of study that was divided into hindbrain, midbrain, and forebrain. Okay. Now, we start with hindbrain. And where is it here? This part. The yellowish part, hindbrain. Okay. Mainly consists of three structures. One is medulla oblongata. That is this one. The green part marked here. This is the one. Then we have pons as well as cerebellum. This is the pons. And this wrinkle structure that you can see, that is cerebellum. Okay, usually it's referred to as a broccoli shape structure or cauliflower shaped structure in our brain, in the hindbrain, that is called cerebellum. It has a wrinkled surface, cerebellum. Okay, so which are the three main parts in hindbrain? One is medulla oblongata, another one is pons, and finally cerebellum. So again, hindbrain starts with medulla oblongata. It is the lowest part of the brain that exists in continuation of the spinal cord. See here, after this, it's the spinal cord that's going deep into the central part of our body. Okay, so this is the continuation of the brain or the joint between the brain and the spinal cord. So it is the lowest part of the brain. Remember, when we draw the structure of the brain, the lowest part or the part that comes at the bottom part just before the spinal cord is the medulla oblongata. And it contains neural centers which regulate basic life supporting activities like breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. This is why medulla is known as the vital center of the brain. So, which part of the brain is known as the vital center of the brain? It is the medulla oblongata, and it is located in the hindbrain area. Okay, why do you think it is called the vital center of the brain?
Because it regulates basic stuff like heartbeat.
Yes, the breathing, respiratory rate, the pulse rate, blood pressure, all these things, the basic functions are dealt with by this medulla oblongata. Have you heard this thing? Like when you're attacked on the part of medulla, it's fatal. You might die. That's because of this reason. It is dealing with these basic functions of the human body, like breathing. Okay, so if you cause any harm or any damage to that area of the brain, then there are chances that you might die. Okay, because you won't be able to carry on these functions properly again. The breathing is a basic function, isn't it? So that's dangerous. Okay, that is the first part. Again, note this is the lowest part of the brain that exists in continuation with the spinal cord. Then it has neural centers and they carry on the basic life supporting activities like breathing, heart rate, and so on. And that is why it is called the vital center of the brain. It has some centers of autonomic activities also. Okay. Now, the second structure, this is the picture of medulla oblongata. This area is referred to as medulla oblongata. See, after this comes the spinal cord, deep into our body. Okay. All right. The next one, pons and cerebellum. See the picture. This is the pons, and this is the cerebellum. In the previous picture, where was it? This is the cerebellum. See, cauliflower like other broccoli type of structure, isn't it? It has a wrinkled surface always. Okay. So pons, we'll start with pons. It is connected with medulla on one side and with the midbrain on the other. See the structure? On one side it has medulla. So this area will be medulla and here it will be midbrain. Okay. So in one area it is connected by or connected with the medulla. On the other it is connected with the midbrain. A nucleus, that is neural center of pons, receives auditory signals relayed by our ears. One function of pons is to receive the auditory signals relayed by our ears. It is believed that pons is involved in sleep mechanism. So one is auditory, receiving auditory signals. Then it is involved in sleep mechanism, particularly the sleep which involves dreaming. Okay, there are different stages of sleep. There are different sleep waves also. I don't know if you'll study that in this course, but still, it's a bit complicated to understand the REM sleep, non-REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. We call it rapid eye movement sleep, REM. Okay, so there are different types of it and different stages of sleep also. And in one particular stage, there is this dream happening. Okay, and that is mainly dealt with by the pons. There are studies which prove that pons has a role in these sleep mechanisms, especially the ones in which the dreams are involved. It contains nuclei affecting respiratory movement and facial expression also. So here you can see four main functions in which pons are involved. Pons is involved. It receives auditory signals, then about the sleep mechanism, then respiratory movement, facial expressions. Pons is supposed to be involved in these four main functions. Okay. So when you consider the central nervous system, if the spinal cord is there, on top of it you have the part of brain called medulla oblongata. On top of that we have the pons. Okay, and to the side of it a wrinkle structure will be there. That is the cerebellum. Yes, have you learnt about cerebellum before? Yes, so many people nodding. Yes, tell me the functions. Again, you learned that in control and coordination, isn't it? Yes. What are the functions of cerebellum?
It controls the posture of the body.
Oh, wow. Posture of the body. Then how many dancers are there here? Dancers. I won't ask you to dance. Just raise your hand if you like dancing or if you have practiced dancing or if you have studied. Malavika, Devika, Emmeline. That's all? Alina and I have seen you dance in the hostel. At some point of life, we all would have danced, isn't it? Yes? No? Abhilash, no?
Highly unlikely, ma'am.
Highly unlikely. Not even once?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Maybe nodded along to a song,
Huh?
but not maybe nodded along to a song.
Okay. Okay. So, when in classical dance and all, especially, we have certain postures, isn't it? We have informations and all, we have to maintain our balance. Maybe we have to stand in one leg, the other one would be in some other posture. Other leg would be in some other posture. So to maintain that, we need to maintain the balance. To maintain that, to be a part of that formation or to maintain that posture, you have to maintain balance, isn't it? So cerebellum is the one who helps in maintaining this balance of the body balance. Okay, remember the cerebellum, it has a bell in it, isn't it? When this center part of the bell oscillates and finally it comes to rest. It is balanced, isn't it? Neither goes left side, neither or goes the right side. So remember that way. Cerebellum means the balance. The main function is balance. So this highly developed part of the hindbrain can be easily recognized by its wrinkled surface. It's very easy to recognize in any picture. It will have a wrinkled surface. It maintains and controls posture and equilibrium of the body. Remember when we learned about equilibrium, I told you equilibrium means a balance. Okay, the balanced state of our body. Then its main function is coordination of muscular movements. Though the motor commands originate in the forebrain, the cerebellum receives and coordinates them to relate to the muscles. It also stores the memory of movement pattern so that we do not have to concentrate on how to walk, dance, or ride a bicycle. We are not conscious about each step while walking, isn't it? It happens in a manner which is kind of automatic. Yes? But when we all were kids and when we all started walking, we were conscious about each step, isn't it? And we would fall, We'll get up again. Again, we might fall. We would have fallen, isn't it? And then we have learned about. We have learned that movement. So it stores the memory of movement patterns. It is because of cerebellum that you are able to move in an automatic, walk in an automatic way, or ride a bicycle in an automatic way. You don't have to be conscious about each parallel that you make in a bicycle, isn't it? Yes, that's because of the cerebellum. Okay, the motor commands from the brain that might originate in the forebrain, which means the order or the command might come from the forebrain part. But this is the cerebellum is a part of hindbrain, right? So what is its function? The cerebellum receives and coordinates them to relate to the muscles. It's kind of an executive. Executive means the higher executive. This receives the signal, receives the messages and coordinates it, and then gives to the peripheral nervous system to make the organs and all work, to make the muscles and glands work. Okay. So you can identify cerebellum by its wrinkled structure or the wrinkled surface. Then it controls posture and equilibrium of the body. Then coordination of muscular movements, muscle movements. That is done, motor movements. It is done by the cerebellum. And one more thing is it stores the memory of movement patterns. That's how it makes us very easy to walk or ride a bicycle. Understood? Okay. So that was about hindbrain. It had three structures. Medulla oblongata, which is known as a vital center of the brain. Then we had the pons, which has we discussed four main functions for it: sleep mechanism, receiving audio signals, then respiratory movement, facial expressions, and so on. And cerebellum with wrinkled surface. The main function is equilibrium, maintaining posture and equilibrium of the body. It is also involved in coordination of muscular movement and receiving and coordinating the information or the signals regarding these muscular movements. It also stores the memory of movement patterns. Okay, that's about hindbrain. Now, the next is midbrain. We have only very small portion to learn about midbrain, and in the previous picture also, yeah. So just a small portion, isn't it? Midbrain. Just like that, we only have a small portion to learn about midbrain. One important thing is RAS in midbrain. Have you learned about RAS? Have you learned about midbrain before?
It is inside the brain.
Eh? What inside the brain? I didn't hear you, Amal. What's inside the brain? No answer. Okay. So we move on to the midbrain. It is relatively small in size compared with the forebrain and hindbrain. This is relatively small in size, and it connects the hindbrain with the forebrain. It is a connection between hindbrain and forebrain. A few neural centers related to some special reflexes and visual and auditory sensations are found here. An important part of midbrain is RAS, Reticular Activating System. Note down its full form. It's a very common question.
What is this RAR?
I'll tell you. Write the full form. Reticular Activating System. Don't write reticulate. It's a common mistake that students make. It's reticular activating system. But have you heard of reticulate? Or have you heard of reticulate? Reticulate venation and parallel venation? Nobody?
Yes, ma'am, on the leaves, reticulate veins.
Yes. The designs that veins of leaves make. It's known as venation, reticulate venation and parallel venation. But here it is reticular activating system. And this system, it is responsible for our arousal, alert mechanisms. It makes us alert or vigilant. It's a main function of reticular activating system. See, it's written here. It's responsible for our arousal. It makes us alert and active by regulating sensory inputs. It also helps us in selecting information from the environment. Okay, for example, when you're sleeping, you're not much alert, isn't it? But when your mom calls you to wake up in the morning, you become alert. That is regulated by the system, RAS, reticular activating system. Or when you're sitting in a public park with your friends, you're hanging out with your friends, and suddenly you heard a loud noise. So you're selecting that stimulus from the environment, isn't it? That loud noise is a stimulus from your environment, and you're selecting that because you're sensing it, you're hearing it, because your brain has processed it already. That is also because of reticular activating system. There are other mechanisms involved, the hearing process and the processing in the brain, all those things are involved. But if a stimulus makes you alert, then this system, that is RAS, has a main role in it. Reticular activating system. That's why it is said to help us in selecting information from the environment. It also helps us to stay alert and active. Reticular activating system. It helps us in the arousal process, alertness, maintaining our alertness, and making us active. This is the system, and it is present in the midbrain. Okay. This is how it does. The RAS filters and prioritizes sensory information to let the mind be focused and alert. That's the basic function. Making the
Can you show previous slide, please?
previous slide, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So that's about the midbrain. It helps us to stay focused, stay alert, and stay active also. Okay. So we have completed the hindbrain and midbrain. Now, till what time is the class? 10:10, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So forebrain. Let's start and we'll complete as much as possible. Forebrain, it is considered to be the most important part of the brain because it performs all cognitive, emotional, and motor activities. We'll discuss four major parts of forebrain. Note the names: hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, cerebrum. Initially, when I showed the structure or the divisions of the brain, did you note that forebrain is the largest division? Yes, and the smallest is the midbrain. And hindbrain is somewhere in between. So there are four main parts that we are going to discuss in the forebrain section. That is hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, and cerebrum. Have you heard of this term before? Limbic system?
No, ma'am.
No. Anybody else?
Ma'am,
I have told this in class.
old mammalian brain.
Old mammalian brain. That is from the textbook. Okay. Noted the four parts? Hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, and cerebrum. Start with hypothalamus. Where is it? This is the hypothalamus. Okay. Now, usually during lockdown, if somebody asks you, what are you up to during lockdown time? Stay home, stay safe. That's a common name tag. But usually, what do you reply? What do you guys usually do? What do you guys usually do if you're sitting at home?
Do nothing.
Huh?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's not true.
And go on social media.
Okay.
And sleep a lot.
Sleep. Yes. That's one point that I'm looking for. Then. Only sleep? When you wake up from sleep, what do you do?
Eat.
Eat. And then? Eat, sleep, and? Oh, come on, you don't know that.
Repeat.
Eat, sleep, repeat, isn't it? Yes, hypothalamus is the one who is regulating this. Eat, sleep, repeat. You'll see that. See, the hypothalamus is one of the smallest structures in the brain, but plays a very important role. It is one of the smallest structures. I showed you, right? See, this is hypothalamus. Considered to the structure of the brain, it's very small, but it has a very important function. Not one function, a set of functions. It regulates physiological processes involved in emotional and motivational behavior, such as eating, drinking, sleeping, temperature regulation, sexual arousal, and so on. Write the examples from here to here. Eating, drinking, sleeping, temperature regulation of the body, okay, of the human body, and sexual arousal. So next time if somebody is complaining about your hunger, especially your mom, tell her it's because of my hypothalamus. I have nothing to do with it. Hunger is regulated via hypothalamus. Okay. It also regulates and controls the internal environment of the body, that is heart rate, blood pressure, temperature. Okay. So as I told you, not only the hypothalamus, but so many brain structures are involved in different functions. Okay. It's not just because of the hypothalamus that the hunger or the sleep patterns are modified. Again, when we learned about the pons, we learned that it has a role in facial expression, sleeping mechanisms and all, isn't it? So there are different connections between the different brain structures, and it is because of these connections that the brain carries out different functions of the human body. And hypothalamus has main roles in these functions, that is eating, drinking, sleeping, temperature regulation, sexual arousal, which are considered as, generally we consider them as emotional and motivational behaviors. Physiological processes involved in emotional and motivational behaviors. It also regulates and controls the internal environment of the body. Also regulates the secretion of hormone from various endocrine glands. That is also one main function. When we study about the endocrine glands, you have to remember this point, because again, hypothalamus is a structure in the brain which regulates the secretion of hormones. Hormones are secreted by endocrine glands, but they need to get a command, isn't it? And the process has to be started. That starts from hypothalamus. Also regulates the secretion of hormones from various endocrine glands. So even this is a very small structure in the human brain. It has a vital role. It has a very important role in our total functioning. Okay. And one main point is the physiological processes, eat, sleeping, temperature regulation, and so on. Then next one is internal, controlling and regulating the internal environment of our body. And third one is regulating the secretion of hormones by the endocrine glands. These are the three main functions. Three category of functions, I'd say. Okay, that's hypothalamus. Now, next is thalamus. Thalamus is the egg-shaped cluster of neurons situated on the ventral. Ventral means the upper side of the hypothalamus. So tell me, thalamus or hypothalamus, which one will be on top?
It's thalamus.
Thalamus will be on top. Hypothalamus means below the thalamus. Hyper means up always. Okay. So it is an egg-shaped cluster of neurons. Then it is like a relay station. This thalamus is always like a relay station that receives all incoming sensory signals from sense organs and sends them to appropriate parts of cortex for processing. This part you might not understand now, but when we study about different lobes of brain and all, you'll understand. It's coming in the next portion. Okay. So what this relay station or the thalamus does is it receives all the sensory inputs coming from different sense organs. And we have learned that the sensory nerves, they bring in this information, isn't it? From the receptors in our sense organs to the brain. Remember, we learned that. We learned that sensory nerves, they take information from the sensory receptors of the sense organs, bring it to the central nervous system. And motor nerves, what do? They carry information from the brain or from the central nervous system to the different parts of the body for initiating movements, to muscles and glands for initiating movement. That's how we engage in different movements or actions. Okay. So here, thalamus is a relay station in the brain, in the central nervous system. Remember, we are learning about the thalamus, which is a part of forebrain, which is again a part of our brain, which is a part of central nervous system. Okay. And it receives all the incoming sensory signals, from sense organs and sends them to appropriate parts of cortex for processing. So before the central nervous system or the brain sends information to different parts of body, it has to be processed by the brain, isn't it? What kind of information am I getting? Is it, again, in the example that we saw, the video that we saw, is it the popcorn or the cookie? The brain has to process it. Then only the brain will be able to relay information to the muscles and the other parts of the body to start or initiate a movement. Yes, that is taking off the hand or changing the position of the hand to another object. Okay, so first of all, this relay station receives information, and after that, it sends to the parts of cortex. It is first sent to the parts of cortex of the brain itself. Then it also receives all outgoing motor signals coming from the cortex and sends them to the appropriate parts of the body. Again, after processing from the, cortex region, the messages or signals reaches the relay station, which is the thalamus again. Then only it will go to the different parts of body for movement. Okay, remember when last year when you learned about the circulatory system, you learned about double circulation in the heart, isn't it? Yes, blood enters 2 times, 2 cycles are there. Just like that, in the thalamus also, 2 times the messages come. That is, first of all, it will receive the messages from the sensory inputs. At the sense organs, the messages will reach the thalamus. It will go to the processing region, just like the blood goes to the lungs. Okay, and then from the processing regions of the cortex, it will again reach the thalamus, and from there it will go to the muscles and glands for further movement. Okay, understood? That is why it is called a relay station. Only if it passes this particular relay station, the messages can be sent to and fro. Every message will be passed on through this area. So first of all, again, I'll explain once more. It is known as a relay station. Why? Because it receives all incoming sensory signals. Then it sends to the cortex region. Then from the cortex region, it receives all outgoing motor signals. Then it sends to the appropriate parts of body. Okay, so it's like the sense organs, the thalamus, then the cortex area, and maybe different parts of body. Here, different parts of body are present in different areas of the body. So from the different parts of body, the sense organs will receive the information. It will be relayed to the thalamus. The thalamus then sends it to the cortex area. Okay. Then from the cortex, the processed motor signals, that is again relayed to the thalamus. The thalamus again sends to the different parts of the body. Understood? That is the that is why it is called the relay station, the thalamus. Okay, so we learned about the hypothalamus, and this is the thalamus. It is known as the relay station. This is the thalamus. What shape is it again? Egg-shaped. It is the egg-shaped structure. And hypothalamus, it is present below the thalamus. That is why it is called hypothalamus. Okay. Then next one is, it's not one organ or one part, it is a system. It's called the limbic system. It is a part of forebrain. And again, it has subdivisions. So please note the names. The limbic system. This system is composed of a group of structures that help in maintaining internal homeostasis by regulating body temperature, blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. Homeostasis again mean the stable form, kind of equilibrium inside our body. Equilibrium of our body temperature, the blood pressure, blood sugar levels, everything should be maintained in a normal manner. According to the change in temperature or the external environment, the internal temperature, the internal blood pressure, sugar level, everything will be maintained according to the environmental conditions. That is the homeostasis form. That is maintaining the equilibrium or stable form inside our body. It has close links with the hypothalamus. Besides hypothalamus, the limbic system comprises of the hippocampus, amygdala. Okay, don't confuse hippocampus and hypothalamus. And limbic system has also, the hypothalamus is also part of limbic system. Okay, even though it's a structure of the forebrain, it has close connections with limbic system. So when we discuss about limbic system, generally we write about hypothalamus also. So other than hypothalamus, there are hippocampus and amygdala. These are other two structures in limbic system. The hippocampus plays an important role in long-term memory. Hippocampus is the one who helps you to maintain the long-term memory. The short-term memory is being converted into long-term memory because of the hippocampus in the limbic system. You can remember your ABCD now because of the hippocampus. Okay. When you started learning it, it was a part of your short-term memory alone. But now it is a part of your long-term memory, right? You know all the, how many alphabets are there? How many letters are there?
25.
20?
5.
25.
Ma'am, 26.
26. My bad, I shouldn't have asked this question. Some problem is there with the hippocampus, I think. Okay, so hippocampus, it has an important role in long-term memory. This is a part of brain, which is a part of limbic system also. It converts short-term memory, STM, into LTM. Short-term memory into long-term memory. So after 20 years, if you still remember about the hippocampus, it is again because of the hippocampus. Understood? Yes, that maintains your long-term memory. Then the amygdala plays an important role in emotional behavior. All the emotions is because of this amygdala, the main role. Whenever you discuss about the emotions, you have to talk about amygdala. That is the structure of the brain which is involved in emotional reactions, emotional behaviors. Hippocampus main role is long-term memory, converting short-term to long-term memory, and amygdala plays an important role in emotional behaviors. And remember, thalamus was what shape? Thalamus was what shape?
Egg-shaped.
Egg-shaped. And here amygdala is almond-shaped. It is supposed to be almond-shaped. Usually you discuss it with the almond shape. Okay. And hippocampus gets its name from the seahorse structure. This is not the hippocampus, it is the seahorse, and this one is the hippocampus. Do you know the scientific name of seahorse? It has a hippocampus in its name. Go check after the class. Okay, so hippocampus is in similar structure to the seahorse. That's why it gets its name as hippocampus. Okay, cerebrum I think we'll learn in the next class. Yes, that's it. Or should we finish it now? Just one slide. Shall we do it now? Okay, cerebrum is the last part, forebrain, also known as cerebral cortex. Remember, from thalamus, all the information will be sent to the cortex. I told you about the cortex. That is a part of cerebrum. This part regulates all higher level cognitive functions such as attention, perception, learning, memory, language behavior, reasoning, cognition, the basic cognition that we have learned about. This is what deals with all of that. Cerebrum makes 2/3 of the total mass of the human brain. The majority part is the cerebrum. Its thickness varies from 1.5 mm to 4 mm, which covers the entire surface of the brain and contains neurons, neural nets, bundles of axons, everything. All these makes it possible for us to perform organized actions and create images, symbols, associations, and memories. Just note that it forms a 2/3 of total mass of brain. It deals with the cognition. That's all. We'll learn about it in the next class. Okay. Let me take the attendance just a minute. Okay. Thank you.